So lesson 2 of the Mousehole Cat. Remember, there has just been a giant storm trying to get into Mousehole. So the fishing boat sat safe as mice in their own mouse hole, but they could not get out. And because the fishermen could not fish, there was no more food. They ate up the few vegetables that were left in their storm-wrecked gardens, and they ate up the sorted pilchards that were left in the cellars. Mouser hated vegetables, and the pilchards were far too salty for her taste. Soon there was nothing left at all. The cats and the people were very hungry. Mouser sat by her window. She was staring out at the storm, and she thought longingly of moggy broth and stargazing pie. And every day the fishermen gathered on the quayside. Sometimes they would try to get their boats out of Mousehole, but that great storm cat lay waiting for them. They were lucky to escape with their own lives. Then, at last one evening, as old Tom sat with Mouser on his knee, she felt him take a deep sigh. "Oh, Mouser, me handsome," he said. He was a courteous and well-spoken man. "Mouser, me handsome, it will soon be Christmas, and no man can stand by at Christmas and see his children starve. Someone must go fishing, and I think it must be me. It cannot be the young men, for they've got wives and children and mothers. If they do not return, they will weep for them. But my wife and parents are dead long before, and my children have grown old and gone." Mouser purred to tell him. She understood, for it was the same with her. "I shall go tomorrow, Mouser, me handsome," said the old man. "I shall not come back without a catch." Mouser purred loud to tell that she wanted to go with him too, for he was only a man, she thought, and men were like the mice of the paws of the great storm cat. Besides, she knew if he didn't come back, she would not much care to live in that cottage alone without him. There would be no one to pour the cream or stoke the range or rock the rocking chair. There would be no one in all the world she knew just where she liked to be tickled, behind her left ear. "Tomorrow night, Mouser, me handsome," he said, "we shall eat moggy broth, baked cake, fair maid scouscad and me stargazy pie." Then Mouser purred. Oh, she just wanted to burst and tell him she loved him more than any of these things. The next morning they set out very early, before everybody else was waking. Before they went, Tom stoked up the old range for when they returned. Then he hung a lamp in the window so it would shine out across the harbour and light up their way. As they reached the quayside, Mouser looked back through the wind and the rain and thought how warm and welcoming that window looked. Soon the little boat was crossing the harbour towards the Mousehole Gap, and that voice of the great storm cat rose around them like a giant caterwauling. As she listened, Mouser felt a sudden strange sadness for the cat. How lonely he must be, she thought, endlessly hunting the men in the depths of the darkness and never returning to a rosy glow of a red-hot range. And her kind heart was moved to comfort him. Many a tomcat had Mouser tamed in her time with the sweetness of her singing. Now she lifted her head and sang like a siren, joining her call to the cry of the great storm cat. And so it was that was taking off as the little boats made their bid for freedom. Soothed by the sweetness of Mouser's serenading, the great storm cat paused in its prowling and pulled back that giant paw just for one mere moment. Swiftly the little boats passed through Mousehole and out into the open sea. Then the great storm cat played with them like cats playing with a mouse. He would let them loose for a little as they fought their way towards the fishing grounds. Then down would come the giant cat's paw into a flurry of foam and water. But he did not yet strike to sink them, for that would have spoiled his sport. And when they reached the fishing grounds, the sea was so rough, it was so hard to even put out the net. "I fancy you must sing again, Mouser me handsome," said Tom, "for your voice seems to soothe the sea like the sirens of the old." So Mouser sang once again, louder and louder than she had ever sung before. Indeed, old Tom was forced to block his ears, should she not distract him from his fishing. And again, the great storm cat paused until those nets were safely shot. And all day they fished in the seething sea. So, we know now that they managed to get out of Mousehole, but that storm cat is still lingering. But Mouser does a wonderful thing and she sings, and that's really, really important. So for today's lesson, what we would like you to do is you are going to become Mouser and Tom in their fishing boat, and you are going to create, using body percussion and your movements, all those different sounds of the sea. So what have you got lying around in your house? Maybe you could put rice into a bottle and shake it. Think of all of the things. We know that in the middle of that sea, that storm is raging. And Tom says, "Mouser me handsome, you must do something." And at that moment, we want to see what happens in your scene with that storm. Okay? So can't wait to see them.